So the start of the race promised to be quite crucial in Zandvoort. It's not the easiest circuit to overtake. As it wasn't crucial at all. Lando Norris got a poor start. The sixth time he started from P1 in Formula One. And once again, he didn't manage to convert it to a race lead. But this time, McLaren had a huge amount of pace and Lando produced a brilliant rest of the race to come back through. But let's have a look in more detail at Lando's start and the rest of the starts, because this did transform how the race unfolded. So firstly, let's look at Norris on pole, but also Oscar Piastri in third, because both McLarens get a very shoddy start as the lights go out. So 5 lights on, and both of them just sit there with wheel spin. So it takes no time at all, barely meters, for Verstappen to launch straight into the race lead. And Max gets a very good start in this one. You can actually see also Sergio Perez getting a great launch from 5th, but he gets boxed in as we play this through. There's nowhere for him to go. Piastri moving to the middle of the road. Perez then stuck behind Piastri and Russell, and with his decent launch, can't really go anywhere. Russell covers him off, and it allows Charles Leclerc to sneak around the outside as well. So important for Leclerc to make the move on Perez early on. Important, in theory, for Verstappen to take the lead. That could have transformed the race, but as it was, the Red Bull pace just wasn't good enough to hold on. But a crucial move as well was George Russell passing Oscar Piastri at the start. And both McLarens got away sluggishly. Oscar couldn't hold on around the outside of George, dropped away from that lead battle, and never recovered to a top 3 position. But let's focus in on Norris's start to begin with here. Pre-start revs, about 9,500 revs, it seems, for McLaren. You can see that on the dash. He's got all those 5 lights lit up. So procedurally, Lando, with the lights coming on, is doing everything right. He's got the clutch to the bite point. He's holding his foot steady on the throttle. He's doing what he needs to do. But as the lights go out, he immediately comes into loads of wheel spin. You can hear the chattering of the rear tyres trying to put the power down, and Max just launches through into the race lead. Fortunately for Lando, Oscar also got a bad start further back, so both McLarens were in the same boat. And there's a few reasons for this, I think. Firstly, there's a very low grip starting grid in Zandvoort. It was quite wet through the weekend. The conditions weren't good. It was windy, and it was difficult to get the power down. Not a lot of rubber down on the grid. Not a huge amount of support series either. No Formula 2, no Formula 3 in the Netherlands. And even if we go on board with Max, you can see as the lights go out, he's also just having to play with the steering because he's on the edge of a bit of wheel spin himself, but nowhere near the amount of wheel spin that Lando had. He has a look to his left and says thank you very much, takes the race lead at home. But even the Red Bull there, who had the best start in the field, is still on the edge of wheel spin. So if McLaren are expecting a bit more grip from conventionally the clean side of the grid, P1, P3, they probably got their calculations slightly wrong with this. And Piastri has a similar thing here, starting with a slightly higher revs than his teammate. Also just goes nowhere with wheel spin in the first phase. Verstappen is through, and Russell's just sticking a nose in, and Oscar doesn't hold it around the outside. And this was critical for Piastri's race, didn't hold it there. And as we play it through, he's desperate to try and get back through the Mercedes, who didn't really have any good pace on Sunday. But this low line is so tempting to use. You've got loads of space. The conventional line is what all those guys are doing out there, running wide, even 2 wheels up on the painted stuff outside, using the banking, getting a nice exit. When Piastri drops down here, it becomes very difficult to get the exit. So we're halfway along the inside of Russell, but just wheel spinning all the way as you come over the crest. You can't get the power down. And so Oscar now cemented in 4th place. And that is a buffer from him to the top 2, which he would never recover from. And in fact, we'll have a look later on, but Charles Leclerc made the most of this as well, getting onto the podium.
I think just a pretty disappointing weekend, to be honest. I think qualifying was not as strong as I needed it to be, and neither was the race, really. So obviously the start was pretty poor for both of us, so something to review there, I think, as a team.
Start stats. So here's your top 6 in the pace order that they get to 100 kph. So that's your 0 to 100 kph, 0 to 60 miles per hour. And it's very quick for a Formula 1 car. But it's a big difference between the McLarens, both on the top end of it. Piastri actually with a worse start than Norris as well, manages to find a bit more to 200 kph. But the damage is all done in that first phase of the getaway, especially on such a short run as Zandvoort is. And you can see actually for Perez, he has such a bad run to 200 because he's actually got to get out of the throttle. He's had too good a start compared to Piastri and compared to Russell, both of which are in the latter half of the 6 runners here. Reaction times are all pretty much the same. So we have a question here, which is, since Lando and Max had identical reaction times at the start, how did Max get a much better launch? So we look back at this. The reaction times pretty much identical for these two, 0.283, 0.281, pretty much identical for all of these guys in the top 6. Not much to separate them in terms of reaction times. They're all Formula One drivers in the peak of their concentration, their reactions. They will do a good job. It's all about the clutch drop and the power application. So we can have a look at a bit of data here. And what we're interested in is right at the start of this telemetry, and it's the throttle application. If we have a look here, you can see the red line, the green line, and the blue line, which is actually just still slightly low and off the chart. But the red line and the green line, both, as soon as the car's launched, start to come on the throttle. And that red line here is Norris, who goes quite aggressively onto the throttle at this part. He's really trying to put on the power, take advantage. He's got a nice clear track in front of him, but that leads to the wheel spin. Piastri, similar. He's much smoother with this throttle application. It helps him out in the later phase. But once again, he's just wheel spinning. Whereas Max actually is much more patient in the Red Bull. He waits for a lot longer and then finally starts bringing in the throttle. In theory here, he's by far the latest to try and get on the throttle, but the McLarens are both just hitting it through wheel spin. They've not managed to get the car under control on that launch. And a Formula One car launches at quite some rate on the initial bite. Both McLarens onto the gas. It looks to me like they've both miscalculated it from the cockpit because the clutch settings maybe are okay, but the wheel spin is coming from the driver's right foot. Both of them compared to Verstappen, a bit impatient. Verstappen, great launch. And as I said, the best in the field. The McLarens, both of them, the worst in the field to 100 kilometers an hour. So certainly a big area of weakness for Norris particularly, who's flying at the moment. It was a terrific race from him. But on another day, and we've seen it this year, that would have cost him the race.
Yeah, I'm not sure honestly what happened at the start. Again, something different to what we've had. And I mean, both Oscar and myself didn't have a great start, so I don't know if we misjudged something or I'm not sure. But we'll look into it, we'll review it and do it better for next time.
Unfortunately for Norris also, the questions are going to continue about his start. So it is certainly a big area that him and McLaren need to work on. This time Piastri joined him in having not such a good one. But I do think for Lando, as soon as he gets one good launch from pole position, it'll help to steady things and stop the questions being asked as well. So that's got to be a big focus for him.